him.
Seriously.
Best podcast coach I ever had.
And, as he likes to remind everyone, he gave me the Heisman for like 6 months when I told him to. All right, welcome everybody. We're live. Woohoo! And we've got a special guest this week, and we're going to get right into our presentation. Tracy, do you need to say anything before we just jump in?
No, I'm good.
Let's see. We're running. Let me just double check. I think, yeah, we're good to go. We're live on social. So, you want to start it? You want me to do it?
I'll be happy to.
All right.
Hey everyone, welcome to Feed Your Brand. I'm Tracy Hazard, and along with my co-host Tom Hazard, we have a recurring guest here. I say guest, but it's not a guest. She's going to give you like the lowdown on everything. So we have such a generous expert here at Podcasters United and Podetize, Juliet Clark, Superbrand Publishing. And Juliet, I introduce you. We use the same intro all the time, but I realized the other day that I have no idea. It has to be astounding number of authors that you have published and or supported and they self-published. How many authors have you done that with?
I have no idea. It was 600 like 4 years ago. So between platform building, book marketing, it encompasses everything. It's not just publishing, but I have no idea. I really don't keep
You
track.
should have a counter. you,
I
you know,
feel I'm not a bragger. No.
you know what? It's so funny because when we got over 1,000, that's exactly what I just stopped counting, right? So I'm sure it's 1,000 plus by now with you. So
I'm running out of fingers and toes.
right. Well, the topic we picked today, you and I have a call every month and we talk about lots of things, but this is a recurring one. This one comes up with practically everyone we both talk to. And that is a lack of content alignment. Tell us a little bit about what you see on the book side of things.
So on the book side of things, everybody writes their book and they think it's an amazing book, and many times it is, but nobody buys it. And if you look at the algorithms on the book sites, unless you're with a traditional publisher, you're probably going to be on page one. You're not going to be on page one or two. And when people search, that's where they're going to find their book. They don't usually go past page two. So what the content does for you is it proves your expertise without you being a bragger, because you've seen those people out there. I'm the most amazing real estate agent ever. I'm, this or that. But it's a very subtle way of proving your expertise and also proving your personality as you're gaining that audience for the book release, which, people don't make a lot of money on books. So what you're really bringing them into is the book and then that bigger ticket item. So that content is a very generous way of you giving away information, showing your expertise without screaming, buy me, basically.
But when their website, their social, everything else that they put out there isn't aligned with the book that's coming out, that's when we see the biggest problem, right?
It is. And there are a lot of people out there, in the online world, people start in one place generally. They try something and it doesn't always work out. So when they come to us, they'll say, oh, I wrote a book on leadership, but I used to have a fitness business. And all these people on my list are in the fitness business. They don't care about leadership. So they have all of this really mixed, the website says they do one thing, their email list is made up of another, the book is about a third thing. So it's really about that building the author platform and getting all that content and trust in alignment so that people actually know what you do and why they should buy that book.
So the book is the natural extension of all those other things instead of the aside, which is why it's harder to sell it.
Yes. And the other thing that happens a lot too is that maybe they'll have a signature program, but they don't write about the signature program. They don't talk about it all the time. So the book is sort of out of alignment with it, because I would rather buy a book and find out how that person operates. Are they an action person? Do they teach a passive way? Because I would be gravitating towards that action person. So when it's not all in alignment, people don't get your true authenticity. And that's where you can go from that, $30 book, used to be 20, but now it's 30 with inflation, to, okay, I really like this person. I want to see more. And that's when you build that trust into that bigger ticket item. It's not the other way around where I'm going to sell my big ticket item and now everybody's going to go buy my $30 book.
But that's a lot of work. Like I'm just sitting there thinking to myself, oh my gosh, that's a lot of work. But because you really shouldn't write your book until you've got like the whole big picture going. But you're not saying you have to do it all at once. I mean, I've heard you many times before, so I know that you're not saying that you have to do it all at once. You just have to have the strategy of alignment through, so you can build the course later. You can build the other things, and hopefully start with the website being correct to begin with.
Yeah, so we actually recommend that you start building that platform 18 to 24 months before your book release. Because for the reality for a lot of entrepreneurs is you are the rainmaker of your company. So you're spending your day on appointments, and that book is an extra thing that you have to now fit into your day. So if you actually start that strategy, start with building that social media, building that email list, which is probably the hardest thing, but one of the most crucial pieces of your launch, building those power partners and doing it all like one in a row. And you have to remember, it's not as easy as I'm just going to create a lead magnet. There's tech involved. There are a lot of things. You have to write that lead magnet or record it. So if you have the strategy at the beginning and start building on it, and then start writing the book and continuing to build the audience, and then you have your launch, and the book is actually, or the course is actually pretty easy. Most people can make a pretty comprehensive course just with videos and workbooks from that book. So that's actually an easier piece than building that platform.
I love that you have that timeline set. It's really realistic. I'm on the 60-month plan for writing a book. I don't, 18 months got blown away a long time ago. But as you know, I think it is accurately 60 months.
I think it's more like 72, but who's counting?
72, yeah. See, Juliet's never gonna let me off the hook for it, but she's probably right.
I think you paid
So,
for that book in 2018 or 19.
yeah, maybe. So this is the thing. We all get in our own way of these things, and the strategy of building that continuity through it, though, is going to serve you so well, because it means that all those stuff start layering one on top of the other and building on each other. Let's talk about that and what that does at each stage, because I mean, this is what we hear. A lot of these book publishing companies are out there going like 6 weeks and your book is done, and instant authority.
hmm Um,
Yeah.
from my own personal experience, nobody ever wrote a good book on a weekend or in 6 weeks. Because you have to remember too, there are all these things in between. So you write the book, you write what we call your vomit draft, where you just, brainstorm, everything goes on there. Now you have to go back and rewrite. And then when you get it to the point where you think it's perfect, now you're going to send it off to an editor who is going to use a whole bunch of red marker. And thank God we have Microsoft Word now, where it's just red lines instead of big red, where that destroys your ego. You've got another chunk there, and more than likely the editor is going to come back and say, we need to rewrite some sections here, or we need to cut, or there's TMI in there that nobody needs to know about. So you've still got another 2, 3 months in editing there. And then when you get to publishing, I mean, we have published books in as little as 2 weeks when they're well written, and we don't have a lot, but most of the time that takes 2 to 3 months too. So it's not an instant gratification, model.
I I really get frustrated with those. And what we see too often though is that's the ones that they get, it devastates them.
Yes.
That's it really hits the ego. It really hits the my business must not have value, when it's really just the way the book went about. It wasn't that your idea, that your concept, that your contribution to the world isn't valuable. It's just the process of doing that failed.
Right. It was part of the process. Another thing we see too that authors don't think about is they start writing the book, and this is especially true with fiction authors. They don't set up a business entity. They don't have an accounting system. You'd be shocked how many times I talk to someone who says, oh yeah, I just put all the royalties into my personal account. And it's like, Well, don't be shocked when the IRS knocks on your door for, because now you're commingling funds as well.
Absolutely. Well, let's talk about the sort of ideal process. So if it's going to take 18 to 24 months, what kind of process do you propose?
So the first thing we usually do with an author that comes into author traffic school is we talk about what is a valuable piece of information that you could give someone today, and that we could create a landing page, a lead magnet, and start building that list. I would say probably 50% of the people that come in don't have MailChimp, Go High Level. They don't have any of that. And so that's where we start, because we start building the email list right away. And then the other piece is social media. Are you on the right platform? We had someone several years ago who was very familiar with Facebook. She had a huge Facebook following. The problem was is she had a solo to CEO book. That was really something that's going to sell her book and her services over on LinkedIn. And she just refused to go there because she didn't know how to use it. So we look for, are you on the right platforms? How can we build this email list? And then from there, once we start building all that, then we go into, are there power partnerships you can develop? Are there people that you can do business with like businesses, sort of like you guys do with me? We refer back and forth, that you could count on in a book launch, and developing those, because now you're developing your business as well as that book. And that's really helpful as well, because one thing authors don't think about is, when they don't have a strategy, is what is this going to cost me long term? So when you get into a book contract, you've already paid an editor. Hopefully you've paid a developer for a good book. You're probably $7,500 into it at that point. Now you're going to pay for a publishing package, and you don't have an audience. So when you start back at that initial piece with that platform building, now those costs are coming out slowly, and you're probably building your business revenue along the way to support those book goals and everything you need to pay for. I would say probably out the door, if you're doing this right, you're probably going to pay a minimum of $20,000 to $25,000 over that, 24, 36 months that you're doing this through.
So I love that idea that you're just sort of like starting with the low hanging fruit. Like, just start with something where it's not a heavy lift. It's one landing page. It's, one little mail list, which, you can go up to like 600 people or something on MailChimp for free. So,
Mhm.
it doesn't have to be a high cost, but to test out, how do I use the tech? What do I do with it? And is my message appealing? Like, you're doing those. Tom and I always called it the prove it first model. You're like proving out how this stuff works and doing all of those little tests at a small level before you go all in and start spending.
Well, there's not only that, there's also most people don't know how to create a landing page. They don't know how to drive. And I do run across people that do their own landing pages. And remember, in all of this, you're going to need a website as well. But if you really want to sell that book, you need that dedicated landing page where you all know, when you go to a website, there are so many bells and whistles there that you get lost. So you need that dedicated landing page that says, take this one action first. So we do start it that way. We also have for authors, and we do it free every October, November. We have a planning course where, so you don't get overwhelmed, we actually break down, what are your goals for the year? And then what is it going to take to achieve those goals? So with a book, you would write down that I need to create a landing page. What tech do I need that? What do I have to learn? What do I have to buy? And so then we take that and we break it down into quarters. We break it down into months. We break it down sometimes as finite as a week, so that while you're being the rainmaker in your company, you are moving forward with those small baby steps too.
And so once you've got that website, landing pages, you've got this sort of, and your social channels picked out, right? You've got
Mhm.
all that. You now have to fill it with some content while you're writing
Yes.
your book.
Yes.
You
Um,
know, Juliet, as I was listening to what you're saying about how you've got to build this and that this is a process, and for most authors, it is not put a book out in 6 weeks, let alone 2 weeks, unless you've been working on it for a couple of years or a very long time anyway. A lot of things you're saying about things being alignment, I say the same thing to new podcasters or when aspiring podcasters when they come to me. One of the first things I ask is, so tell me about the subject that the message you want to bring to the world through your podcast, and then tell me about it. It's like, okay, is that in alignment with your current business? Is that about what you do for a living? And most of the time the answer is yes, and then that works very well because then you're spending time. Yes, maybe you're enjoying it and you're wanting to serve and you're wanting to give back to people from your knowledge, from your career, but at the same time, when it's in alignment with your business, that's how you're going to get some return on this investment of time and money you're going to spend. And if that's in alignment with your book, I would imagine as an author, that's like, the magic alignment is when you've got book, podcast, website, business, everything in alignment. And we have quite a few podcasters who either create a book once a year from their episodes or from a selection of some of their episodes from that last year, or use the podcasts they already have to raise awareness of a book that's coming up. So, I've seen this work very well. What's your experience with that, Ben? I mean, obviously you're a podcaster too.
It's the same process. So, and it's the same for speakers. It's the same for courses. We are doing the book to course right now with Arcub, and that is one of the things we talk about is if you have a book that you're turning into course and the book didn't sell well, we need to go back and work more on that platform building process. The number one thing I hear from clients is I don't have time for content. And when you look, that's your trust builder. So, and that's also that social media part of it is your proving ground. Is this idea something that people are excited about? Or is it just kind of a dud on social media? If you get a dud reaction, chances are it's not hitting. So that 18 to 24 month prove is really a proving period. Is this the right book to write? And probably the same with, is this the right podcast? That and teaching people how to drive traffic. Driving
Well,
traffic.
that's what I think happens so often when you were saying early, like having the landing page and the email list. Like, I mean, that's one of the things that we've always done here at Podetize is we've always created the podcast page, which is essentially a landing page for your podcast. We just typically like to nest it within your website so that you'll display the rest of your content too, give access to it so it's a little easier. But the email capture, the all of those things are where people fail to see the value in it, that they haven't done the job of capturing the leads that they've generated from it.
That's very true. And the other thing is there is this great expectation with an email list. I'm going to build this really big list really fast. And how many times does that happen? No, sorry. It's
I'm
not going to
sorry to
happen.
laugh. I'm sorry to laugh, but it
Oh,
how
I've
many of
seen it
us
big,
how many of
but
us are looking for the next email list to sign up for? Really? I mean, nobody is waiting for the next one. If I have signed up for, I did this. I'm remembering this because I know I saw a note on Tracy's desk to ask me about what is this thing that you paid for last month. And it's a product from a company called Loop that I, want to get this thing. It's 3D printing related, big surprise for me, right? And I put $100 deposit on this thing, which is completely refundable, but its product doesn't even exist yet. That's a list I want to be on. How's that thing developing? I'm actively looking for it. But if you're otherwise asking people to trade their name in email for them to get another email that, they get tons of unsolicited email every day. Obviously, this wouldn't be unsolicited if they're signing up to your list, but you better be offering them something of value to get them to do that. So how are you going to do that as an author for a book that is going to come out in, I don't know, 6 months, a year and a half, whatever it is? It's a tough ask, I think.
It's a tough ask, but you're not mentioning the book in that platform building phase yet.
Ah,
You're proving your expertise. You're giving the information for free. One thing that we've done that's been very successful in as an accessory to the list, and I actually have more people doing this that connect with us, is that LinkedIn newsletter. because LinkedIn does a lot of the work for you. So we have a pretty big list, fairly big list, but we actually have more people on our LinkedIn newsletter, and we do monthly trainings. So showcases our, our expertise. We make it into podcasts because people show up, we answer questions, we have a trainer, and we actually watch with that LinkedIn newsletter. Unlike the email list, people start showing up. They'll show up 1 month, 2 month, 3 month, and then all of a sudden they're on my calendar. And that's true engagement that I don't think you're going to necessarily get from an email list. So you can use both of those strategies in tandem for this as well.
Well, I want to go back to something you said just a little bit before about content. That so many people are like, I don't have time for content.
Mm-hmm.
I'm
Then-
glad you're talking about this, Tracy. I was
Right.
thinking about this as well.
I mean, look, if you don't have time for content, then you don't have time to have a list. You don't have time to have a newsletter. You don't have time to have a podcast. You don't have time for writing a book. That it's all content all along the way.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't build in an opportunity for you to create that content, then you're just, I mean, you're phoning it in. You're getting a ghostwriter for everything. So you're not out there. It's not you. You're not participating in the process.
Yes, and think about that. I mean, I know you guys see it too because I do a lot of marketing. When I have someone come in for a done for you product, which I don't do much of anymore because I really need you to authentically show up, I will do a done with you because when you don't show up in your marketing's not going to be successful. It's Juliet Clark or Tracy Hazard or Tom Hazard creating a persona for this person. And most of the time, if they don't know what you're doing, what you're creating, and how it all works together, you can't fix it. And what I mean by that is if you have a funnel and you have, a disconnect in your funnel, you're going to go back through and see where people are falling out. But if you don't have a big enough handle on what you're doing, you're not going to be able to fix it. You're going to be this isn't working. This marketing person didn't work for me. I'm going to throw the baby out with the bathwater. When you actually learn the tech, you don't have to do the tech forever. You can hire a VA. But once you learn how to do it, start creating yourself, it's authentic, and you can go back and see what are the results? Are people excited about this? What do I need to fix in that funnel to get people all the way through it? So it really is important for you to be engaged in all of this.
Oh, I'm so glad you said that because it's really one of those things where you want these customized results. You want everything to get you. You want your audience to get you, but you won't even participate in one single phone call. That's been the experience of the done for you, is that it's all gift wrapped and handed to you. But when it's gift wrapped and handed to you, it's my idea of what a good gift is, not your idea.
Exactly.
That's
I
the
always tell
problem.
my clients, BYOP, bring your own personality. Like you can't make this happen without it. You could tell I was a party girl in my younger days, right? I had to repurpose that.
I love
Oh,
that. BYOP.
that's great. That's great. I say the same thing to podcasters. We can do almost everything else for you. The one thing I can't do is record for you. And if you're not willing to do that, if you're not motivated to speak, to get on the mic, whether you're just sharing your wisdom with the world in a solo cast, or you're having a conversation with someone else like Tracy and I do on Feed Your Brand every week, or you're going to interview somebody, if you don't have an interest in any of that, then you're just shouldn't even bother thinking about it. But if you do have an interest in that, the wonderful thing about a podcast is that you can go and have fun having those conversations, sharing your nuggets of wisdom with the world, building authority, building credibility, getting people actually interested to want to sign up to learn more from you, to get more information. You come up with of something of value for free, you can give them a downloadable PDF on something. I would imagine if it's a book, you could have a little teaser part of the book. I don't know if it needs to be a whole chapter, but a few pages at least, a treatment, something. But in order to get it, they've got to trade their name and email. There are good reasons why you can come up to do that with reasons for people so they will want to do this. But you've got to be self-motivated. You've got to be willing to show up. And, you know, I don't know that every person is really a good fit to be a podcaster or every person is really a good fit to be an author, but I think a lot of them are, when they have something to share, something they want to say. And this is a wonderful thing, I think, the synergy between podcasting and being an author. There's an awful lot of synergy. And gosh, I mean, people always ask me, when's the best time to start a podcast? I say last month
Like,
because,
when's the best time to start marketing your book? 2 years ago.
yeah, I
Right?
mean, there's no time too soon to start building that list and building that audience. And I would imagine, Juliet, you'd love it if every author came to you and they were already a podcaster and have an audience they've been speaking to for a year or two, right?
Yeah, I do. I love it. And I'll tell you just a brief little story here. I actually had one of your podcasters on my calendar this morning, and he asked me, could I find him a literary agent? I started asking him about downloads, and I was like, we might be able to do this. Let me see who I can connect you with. Over 700,000 downloads of his podcast. So that is the kind of criteria he could probably get himself, hopefully, a traditional contract from that because he has a following that is worthy of it.
That's great news. I'm glad to hear that. I'll have to hear
Yay.
later who that is. I'm just curious. But
I will tell you, I forgot to tell you beforehand.
no, that's all right. No, it's wonderful. And, I was just looking at somebody else's podcast yesterday who I'm blown away with the consistency of every month. And it's even gone higher. He had over 82,000 downloads in the last month, like legitimate. And the majority of those are from Apple. So, they're real.
And that's the part that I just don't understand, Juliet, about this. Like, so you finally get like the alignment piece and the strategy going, and you're writing the book. Why wouldn't you want to keep touching base with people all along the way with the content creation? Like, it just doesn't make sense to me that I wouldn't want to. I'm writing a chapter on this. Does anyone have any ideas? Or like, what do you want me to cover? Like, it could be such a great conversation with your audience, getting them so primed and excited for the book when it comes out.
Well, it's not only that. So I tend to have guests on my podcast. Nobody shows up when I'm solo. Don't ask me why. I guess I'm boring. But I just don't get as many downloads when it's just me. But a lot of the guests that I have are industry related. They add value. I get ideas from them. But most of all, I get to find out what they're up to and decide if they would be a good, what I call a power partner. And those power partners are valuable in the launch sequence because if you're doing a really great launch, you've had all this buildup, and now you can go to those people and say, would you mind sending out an email blast? Would you mind supporting my bestseller campaign? Would you, could you help me out with this? And, I quite often offer to reciprocate in some way, if I can. So it's also a great way to not only get information out there, but to build those partnerships that are going to support that launch of the book.
Which you have to nurture all along the way. You can't just say, I'm writing a book and I'm going to sign you up, and 2 years from now, I'll contact you, right? You can't just do that.
Right.
And, you can use your podcast to, drop hints, share behind the scenes things about your book as you're going through it. I mean, you don't have to make it what each episode is all about, but you can, drop some hints and share some information. I remember with our 3D printing podcast, when we were working up to a time where we were going to take a break for a couple of months because our daughter was getting married, I was working on some 3D models, having some things 3D printed that were like party favors for everybody who attended the wedding. Women got one kind of thing, men got another thing, and my daughter was into it. I'd just do this for me, just to put that out there. But the thing is, there were things we were talking about, letting people know this was coming up, and then there was this anticipation. They were, oh, I want to see those models and I want to download those models. And guess what? People would have to trade their name and email to download that model for free, but they could do that. You can do the same sort of thing with a podcast and of your own podcast for whatever you're doing. And I remember the great example of when Howard Stern was working on that movie. I mean, he had written the book, Howard Stern's Private Parts, and then it was becoming a movie. It was the best marketing for any movie ever because every day on his show, after the show, they'd be going and filming scenes of the show. and they would have some of the, the daily stuff they were talking about, or the things that happened, even some tragedies where somebody had stolen some of the daily, tapes of some of these scenes and was sharing them online. Even
When it
talking
was on
about
tape.
that, no, the movie was filmed, but they had tape. They had actual tapes when they filmed this one to look at some of the daily stuff. And I know I hate it when people today say they taped something. Oh, you mean you recorded it on your digital device? You didn't use tape anywhere
There
in
was
there.
real tape.
There was real tape. But anyway, they were using tape then. But that was the best marketing built in, even though he's revealing certain things, teasing to it all along the way. When that movie came out, that thing did really, really
But
well,
I
more
think
than
that,
expected.
Juliet, like that's the stories that when I listen to your guests on your show, that's the stories that they tell. They tell about how hard it was to market their book. They're telling about how, they they had this giant email list and then it was useless because it was crickets. There was like nobody with value on the list, but they got this great list. So I think that that's really the interesting part. When you get to do that, you're going to reveal things for yourself in building that content as well.
You are. And, if you didn't do this in advance, one of the ideas I really am embracing with my clients is the limited podcast series to go with your book. Because if someone's looking for a particular, a type of podcast or book, chances are, if you didn't build that audience, you're, on page 100 of Amazon. They're never going to find your book. But if they come up and you're promoting the podcast, they get to hear your voice, they get to hear your ideas. Quite often you can't record an entire, well, you can, it's called an audiobook, but if somebody's not going to buy that, but if you can use that podcast as a teaser to come buy the book, come see what we're all about, that's a great accessory for a book as well, because I think more people are not only listening to podcasts, but a lot of people just aren't reading books anymore. They want it delivered to them in an audio format, whether it's a synopsis in that limited series or whatever that is.
You
Well,
know
I
what I would
remember
probably
interviewing.
do?
Oh,
What I
Yeah.
would probably do in that situation is make it when if you could do an audiobook. That's fine for those people that need that, and especially people that have sight issues and have trouble reading or can't concentrate when they do it. But if I were doing a podcast that's a companion, a limited series just for the podcast, I'd be giving the rest of the story or the behind the scenes of what was more. There's more to get, more to offer, more of me, more of the story. If read the book, but then you listen to the podcast, or maybe they all listen to the podcast first and they don't reveal the entire story that's in the book. And there's a good reason for both, right?
well, I
Yeah.
remember Mark Gober wrote the book, The End to Upside Down Thinking, and he did a limited edition podcast after the fact. He wishes he did it before when I talked to him. But he did it after the fact, and it was the interviews that he did to write the book, which were much more in depth. Now, he had to spend a lot of time editing them because they were like hour-long interviews that were all over the place, right? And foundationary in some cases. But when he put out the limited edition, it was a fabulous companion, deeper dive story into, what was going on in government research behind the scenes of remote viewing and things like that, like, really high hit topics on top of it. And so I remember thinking, "Well, I don't know why more authors don't do it this way. Like you're going to have to do the interviews anyways. You're going to record them in order to write them. If you're writing that type of book, save them because they're fabulous for a limited edition."
Well, not only that, the number one when I try to get people to do a podcast, the number one thing I hear is I don't have the bandwidth. I don't do this. I actually think it's fun because I get to talk to different people. But if you don't have the bandwidth, this is an easier way to do it because it's 10, 12, whatever you decide that series is, and then maybe you're done with it. Or maybe you add an episode later, like an updated version. Oh, when I was building my platform, I didn't know about shorts. Oh my gosh, here's what I would do with shorts. And I was just thinking that this morning about the book that I put out about author platform building. Well, I should go back and redo that and add an episode or add a chapter on how to utilize shorts. So there are lots of different ways you can use that.
Well, that's something actually a strategy that we have. So we had done a certified strategist course, which is similar to the course that you're going to be building, and well, I'm sure we'll be announcing here to those that would like to be in that world. But where it's more of like, go to other people who want to start a podcast production company and teach them how to do this. And we did that over the course of we built it over the course of like 3-4 months or something like that. But in order to keep up, because there's new industry information, there's new things that they needed to know, we made a dedicated playlist of podcasts for them that we would fill. And we didn't commit to saying we were going to fill it every week or anything like that. But we said, whenever there's something new, we're going to add it here. So just subscribe. And it made it so easy for us to just give them information. And for our purposes, if we happen to record it out for our clients, we just add it as an additional subscription to the other list. And then both of them get it no matter where they're subscribed. And so you're right, Juliet. It's like, this is a way to keep things updated without writing a whole new book.
Yes. Yes. And I just committed to writing a whole new book. Don't even ask me why. I swore I was never going to write another one.
It is your business, right? I get that.
I know, but I'm sick of books. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah. So I love that we've been talking about this sort of content alignment, because I think that that's why you don't have bandwidth, right? The reason you don't have bandwidth is because it's outside the realm of your business. When Tom and I record our content here, that is going to become our podcast. It becomes fodder for the book. It becomes everything that we need it to be. It's all into our website. It's every time we come through here, we get like 5 or 6 tips. Like the BYOP is going to be a clip that is going to end up in a tip somewhere, that if you want to do a podcast or a book, right, you better bring your own personality. That's going to end up out as a tip. All of those things come because we spend the time to record this once a week for 1 hour.
Mhm.
Like, it's not that difficult, but it's aligned with our business, because we're also here showing up for the people who are on Zoom, who have questions for Juliet and are going to get to ask them when we end the live stream. So we're live streaming and promoting on social. We're supporting our community and our client base. We're supporting our partners like Juliet. We're getting great content to fill everything's aligned because it is a part of our strategy and our business.
Yep. And I want to add that this was true of podcasting for us before we were in the podcasting business. I want to make that really clear. That doesn't just work for us because we're in the podcasting business. We were in the 3D printing business and we did it. We were in, that wasn't actually our business. It was related to our business. But, as long as you are in business and you have knowledge, expertise, tips, insights, great stories to share that are related, this will work for you. And you can do one thing that becomes all these other things. And that's really, I think, the big point.
And Juliet, I love the idea, though, of testing out the content and seeing if it has legs to be a part of the book as you're writing it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The other thing is on this too, people always ask me, what is the ROI you get from your podcast? I don't necessarily measure it because it is so much content that I'm not actually sure I can, but I have people on my calendar. So something's happening there. So I don't always do that direct correlation, which I know every business person listening right now is like, you what? But it creates so much content for me that clients do come to my calendar because you can split it so many different ways. And I actually get asked in a lot of shows because people notice how much I repurpose. Basically because I'm lazy. No, not really lazy, but there are just
because you're smart.
You can do so many things with it. I can make a social media post. Every week I take my episode and I have probably 3 or 4 shorts connected to the bigger video. I have for those readers, we have the blog we have the newsletter on LinkedIn. We have the email list. We send all that out in a particular way. And those are just, I probably have 10 to 12 ways that I can repurpose that one episode into something that I've even made a lead magnet out of an episode one time. So,
as Tom was putting it, we've seen people make books all the time out of their content too. So I agree with you, Juliet. I think that when it's all aligned, it all flows, and it's so much easier to carve it up and do what you need with it and get it all out. Before we end here today, I want to make sure that everyone knows, First off, promote, profit, publish. This is Juliet's podcast. Go check it out. Superbrand Publishing is their website. There's a link, and there is a new landing page for Juliet Clark that is on the podcastersunited.org website. So you can go podcastersunited.org/Juliet Clark. You can even type in Juliet, just put Juliet if you're too lazy, and you'll still get to her. And so, because I create extra forwarding for people who can't spell. I think I even did Clark with an E just in case. So I try to cover all our bases, Juliet, so people can find you.
Oh, well, thank you.
Yeah, and we are going to do one more cool thing. So if you are a part of the newsletter, which you should be, because then you get notified about when Juliet's going to be on next, and you also get an opportunity to get her articles and other things that she doesn't really share out unless you are subscribed to her big magazine. She shares them after the fact to our community. And so, but we are going to do a special introductory series about some various things, and that's why that page is there for Juliet as well. We're going to do an introductory series, and we're testing out in the process a brand new email program that isn't even publicly available yet. So
Ooh.
It's kind of a cool thing. It's it comes from the same company that is doing the newsletter, which is called Rasa. And that's all coming from Juliet. So I want to make sure you all find that. But before we go, Juliet, is there anything else you want us to know and consider as we're thinking about this idea of content alignment with the sole goal of getting a book sold at the end of the road?
Yes, start early, be intentional. I think you guys know we have a new product that will actually give you with some easy questions, basically a 2-year strategy. It's a pretty comprehensive report. It's usually 20 to 25 pages. So if you're even thinking about it, it will tell you who your audience is, psychographics, demographics. We actually start with what's called the unaware phase, which is, I call it the nobody knows you're alive phase, but that's where all of us start.
The hidden gem phase. Let's gloss it up.
I like that. You're always so positive, and I'm always so negative.
This is why we're such good friends.
Yes, reformat my language for me. But we've actually started to put that out as a product, and it's kind of hilarious because we'll have people come on our calendar and they'll say, "Oh, I can run that on ChatGPT," and I have to say to them, "You did, and yet you're here." So were your prompts right? Is it working?
That's right. Well, I'm in the process of testing this all out, and we're going to have Juliet and her expert coming on in September to talk about it some more. So stay tuned. Make sure you subscribe to this podcast so that you know when they're coming on, and go get the newsletter, because then you'll really know what it's all about and when it's coming. Thanks, everyone, for listening. We so appreciate you here. Tom and I will be back next week with another topic, and Juliet will be back in about a month and a half, so you don't want to miss that. And you'll be back in October, too, I think, with just you.
Yeah, just me.
Yes, you. Well, and as always, go to podcastersunited.org, and we'll be able to connect everybody up together so you can get all your answers for how you want to show up in the world.
All right, that's good. Great way to end off, Tracy. Wonderful. We'll leave it there. And all you in the live stream world, we'll see you next week.
Okay.
We're going to answer questions for those